I don't remember much else that I did, but I attended the Community College League of California conference in Riverside, and I attended 5 workshops on CTE, workforce development, guided pathways with preparing students for employment, and then programs specifically for training them in how to do interviews and whatnot, and getting interviews for these students and having partnerships with major corporations in Silicon Valley. And one of the highlights of those 5 sessions was that I exchanged a lot of business cards, and exchanged cards with a lady that she was just over the top excited about Fullerton College's manufacturing program. I said, that's good, yeah, they should toot their horn more, you know. And so I'm excited about Fullerton College, but I still don't have any idea how successful you are. But let's get with it and do something with it. Anyway, another highlight was I ran into the partner, one of the senior partners, our law firm, AALRR, and I talked for 50 minutes to Loya, and we grew up in the same area of Northern California, so we exchanged conversation on Hans and his career in law and what he changed from engineering at Berkeley and on, and I thought it was a real plus to be able to get to know one of our attorneys on that level for that long.
I just want to mention some events that I went to at Fullerton College, the women's chorale and the men's chorale, and Matthew Calloway, who was their director. And I have to tell you, just observing the students' faces who were involved in choral music is such a thrill. And we know they come from backgrounds that are so diverse, and some very marginalized students, that I really appreciated hearing them sing. And the other thing I wanted to mention, I did get to see Bright Star, which was the theatrical production in the Bronwyn Dodson Theater. It is sold out. The musical group was absolutely premier, as were the singers and the acting. It was a real thrill to see that, and I brought a friend with me. I think that will do it. There is one concert coming up at Fullerton College on December 13th, another choral music concert in the main auditorium on campus. So, if you like choral music, you'll
No report for me, thank you.
I also attended the CCLC conference, and I have a written report. I just wanted to make a couple highlights. One of them is about OER, and there is a Senate initiative to go out to invite faculty to continue to write OER proposals. So I wanted to announce that. The second one was a talk about the OEI, which is the Online Educational Initiative, not to be confused with the new online college. But that one has a consortium, and they were giving out data that we're just not part of the consortium, so she's kind of, has that been considered, and looking possibly to run with it. And then I wanted to also recognize and thank Cheryl Marshall, who gave a presentation entitled Walking the Razor's Edge, Institutional Effectiveness Alongside Chaos and Complexities. And I learned how many people at Harvard it takes to change.
The whole school.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to thank Bobby Lee Smart for her public comments on adjunct faculty pay. Pay parity for the adjunct faculty is a very important issue that is deserving of greater attention. I would also like to thank the staff and former staff who work on our campus food banks, and also like to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
I was also at the CCLC conference in Riverside, and I've got a few notes that I will get to the trustees. But I wanted to mention a conversation I had that I've already told Dr. Schulz about, and I want everyone to know. I was talking to a trustee from the current district who had previously been both a faculty member and then an administrator in their district. And when she was an administrator, part of her responsibilities dealt with the early childhood education programs and facilities. And when she found out, where I was from, she said, Fullerton College, that early childhood program is the gold standard for the state. She said, we've sent people down to Fullerton to study it. We've tried to adopt some of the things they're doing. We're not there yet. But she said, it is just the absolute best program in the state. It is the absolute gold standard. So I wanted to congratulate Fullerton, everybody who's involved in that. Obviously, we're very proud of the program, and it's clearly recognized by other people in the state. So, okay. Agenda item 2A, approval of minutes of the regular meeting of November 12th, 2019. Are there any changes, corrections? Do we have a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Is there a need for a closed session at this point?
No, and there's no reason.
Okay, we'll read that later. Okay, item 3A, the public hearing regarding the Sherbeck Field Improvements Project alternative, the Sherbeck Field Improvements Reduced Project alternative. As I said before, what's on the agenda tonight is about changing from 4,400 seats to 2,000 seats. I have about a dozen cards. They are in pretty much random order. I haven't stacked them, so I don't know, what the ratio or order of pro and con will be. What I will do is call name and then also who the next one up is, so that we don't have to, have people standing along the walls. I think we'll be able to be more orderly than we were last time. Okay, so first we'll be
staff presentation first?
Excuse me?
Staff presentation first?
Oh, do you want to say something, Greg?
President Greg, I just had a question for you. We have a brief presentation.
Oh, okay.
If you'd like, we could begin with that. If you'd like, we could have a follow public comment.
Let's start with that. That's what we did at the last time. That I suspect I'll provide some useful information for everyone.
We'll begin with that, and I'll invite Rachel Speedy from do that to join. All right, good evening. Well, with tonight's agenda item before you, we wanted to just review some of the key points about the agenda item before you, specific to the 2,000 seat capacity. So first, I'd like to review the proposal before you today meets the following objectives. It provides a field for the Fullerton College football program that meets the 3C2A and NCAA requirements. It also provides field lighting, opportunities for evening classes, a press box, and storage. And it partially meets the following objectives: permanent bleachers for hosting of football games and reducing cost for rentals. It does not avoid all significant unavoidable impacts, specifically traffic and noise.
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Trustees. Rachel Strulia from DUDAC, assisting staff with preparation of the documentation for this project. As President Schulz mentioned, the reduced project does reduce noise impacts. Under the previously approved project, the decibel levels from the project range from 7 to 13 decibels, and they will be reduced to about 4 to 8 decibels with a 2,000 seat improvement project. Also, one of the things as a result, and Venna Clausen Associates is here to talk a little bit more, is that we reduce the operating level of the public address system as a result of reduced crowd size from 91 decibels to 86 decibels. So that is also a benefit of the project. The traffic impacts are also reduced by about 3 impacts, although I'm oversimplifying that, and Dan Close from LLG is here to talk a little bit more about that. And next, I'd like to call Ben Kloss and Associates to summarize noise.
Good evening and thank you. We'll make this quick because a lot of this is going to be recap for everyone. As we discussed last meeting, with about every 500, a reduction of 500 spectators, you can see about what would be a need for about 1 decibel reduction of the overall need for the PA system to reach kind of fire life safety clearances so it can be heard and be intelligible over a crowd noise. So what that ends up seeing is you can see about 4,200 spectators. The predicted exterior sound level in the neighborhood is about 69 to 76 dBA, depending on where you were, which would be an environmental increase of about 7 to 13 at the loudest points of any event, based mostly on football. Of course, that is not continuous. If it was to be reduced, if we're going to say about 2,000, we have 1,500 here just for comparison, but it's just a numbers game. I'll just stick to 2,000. It drops to approximately about 5 decibels less. Decibels, if you don't work in the industry, is just kind of a cloudy kind of idea, but the idea is about every 6 decibel reduction is a 50% reduction of what you hear, what you experience. So that gets reduced by about 50% every 6 decibels or so. That's about what the math comes out to. So that then comes down to predicted levels in the neighborhoods anywhere from 66 to 71. It is worth noting that the traffic along Berkeley Avenue is 65. So during daytime levels, quiet points of events will be almost indistinguishable. Nighttime events would be a little bit more, but again, it's not continuous. It just happens at periodic events of cheering or something like that. And then you can see there the range of increase is down from 7 to 13 to about 4 to 8. Drop about another 500 people, you'll see a 1 decibel reduction kind of across the board with all of those numbers. So that kind of pushes us into the traffic and vacuum cleaner equivalent range. I would like to go back to the previous slide real fast, and where it shows the maximum operating level of the PA of 86 to 91. And mind you, again, we do go down to 86, and everybody hears that and is like, oh, but that's much louder. Again, that's on field. That is not in the neighborhood. So that number for the neighborhood would be more in the 66 to 71. So then I guess now we move over to traffic.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask you a question about sound?
Yes, let me go back. There you go.
So if we have 2,000 spectators at a game, for example, in a field or a bleachers that can hold 4,200,
Yes?
does that also reduce the decibels to the level of that crowd size?
Yes, the idea basically is a sliding scale. It doesn't matter how many bleachers you have, it's just the amount of people that are in them.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Good evening, Dan Close, Associate Principal of Lynn Scott Law and Greenspan Engineers. So what I'll do is I'll present the traffic findings, and what I have on the slide is a comparison between the 4,417 seat field, which is shown in column 1. Column 2 shows the findings of the alternative project, which is 2,000 seats, and column 3 shows the difference between the two. So starting with row 1, as we know, the alternative project's 2,000 seats, so there will be a reduction in 2,417 seats from the proposed project. Row 2 shows the trip generation between the two, and as shown in column 3, the alternative project would generate 2,357 fewer daily trips during an event. It would also generate 853 fewer event arrival trips. And then in the departure peak hour, there would be a reduction in 913 trips during that event departure period. Row number 3 presents the study intersections that we looked at. Obviously, we looked at the same 31 that we evaluated for the proposed project. Row 4 presents the existing plus project Saturday impacts. And as shown with the alternative project, all 3 impacts are eliminated with the 2,000 seat alternative. So there would be no no significant impacts under existing plus project Saturday conditions. Then moving on to row 5, that presents the 2020 plus project Saturday conditions, and as shown, we are also eliminated all 3 impacts under that condition. So under 2020 plus project Saturday conditions, there would be no significant impacts at the intersections. Moving down to row 6, that presents the Saturday 2030 build-out conditions. Again, as shown, we've eliminated 3 impacts, but there also remains 1 significant impact at intersection number 12, which is State College at Chapman. The mitigation to offset that impact is the same as the proposed project. It would be a second westbound left at the intersection, and the project, or the college would be required to pay their fair share. And that fair share is much smaller now because there's less traffic generated with the alternative. Row 7 shows the findings for existing plus project Friday conditions. Again, this was an analysis that was requested by the city of Fullerton if there was a simultaneous event. And as shown, there are also 3 less impacts under that scenario. However, we still have a significant impact at intersection 27, which is Lemon Street at Fullerton College Drive. And the mitigation to offset that impact would be implementation of a traffic management plan, which is consistent with the findings of the proposed project. And then finally in row 8, that shows the findings of the 2020 Friday analysis. And again, consistent with existing plus project Friday conditions, 3 impacts are eliminated. However, we still have an impact at number 27, Fullerton College Drive at Lemon Street. And consistent with the proposed project, mitigation to offset that impact is implementation of a traffic management plan. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
I have a question.
Sure.
Row 2, trip generation.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's assuming that there is a full capacity of either 4,417 people or 2,000 people.
That's correct.
Okay, and when it says daily, that means on a day in which the bleachers are filled up, or is that what will happen 365 days a year?
That would just be a daily trip generation for an event.
Okay, so if that happens 5 times or once during the year, that daily gets for that day only.
That would be that day only, correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so if you have 2,000 spectators sitting shoulder to shoulder in a 2,000 bleacher field, or you have 2,000 people sitting spread out in a 4,200 field, does that have any change in traffic?
No, it would be the same traffic because you have the same number of people.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No.
All right. So you just want to touch on the additional project commitments in response to the concerns again? So to begin with, we added PDF TRA that the college would provide free parking for football and soccer game attendees. The speaker system will not exceed 86 dBA on the field at any events. No Fullerton College football games will be played on Friday evening. No high school football games will be played at Sherbeck Field. No field lighting for any outside groups on Saturday or Sunday. No rentals for musical performances or concerts by any outside groups. It's permitted. And outside groups using the field are prohibited from using any public address or sound amplification systems. So that concludes our brief presentation. Our team will remain ready following the opportunity for public comment to respond to any comments or questions the board may have.
I just have one question, because, you know, the recommendation, the way it's written in this particular agenda item is basically recommending the rejection of the first approved field and recommending the alternate field. I think that was just structured that way for the purposes of being able to vote on it understandably. But what is the school's position at this point as far as your recommendation goes? Are you still recommending the larger size field that was covered in the environmental impact report as the recommended configuration, or is now the college recommending the smaller one?
So it's, the agenda item is worded the way it is in response to the board's request. So we wanted to provide that opportunity for you at the board's request. And I know others may speak to this later. From my perspective as president, We have not had lighting and seats at Sherbeck Field. We're very thankful. I'm very thankful for the opportunity to have this considered to potentially add seating and lighting on the field. I know in talking with the faculty and staff and coaches, I will say in my interaction with them, they're very appreciative as well. They are a little concerned about growing into 2,000 and the risk of exceeding 2,000 seats. It's not something in our recent couple of years we've had to deal with. But other colleges, when they've moved to their home campus, have experienced a surge in attendance. So I'll just say that from the college's point of view, we're very appreciative of the opportunity to have one of the two options considered. We recognize our community members and the feedback that they've shared, and we've really tried to work hard to incorporate those changes, and we know that the board asked us and directed us to do so in response to the community concerns, while I think trying to do everything possible to support the students at Fullerton College and the faculty and programs. I hope I helped answer your question.
Okay. Okay, public comments. So I will call a name for the next speaker and then also let you know who is next in line for the at-bat. Okay, first Bob Jensen, followed by Ben Vega.
And if I can get a word in between your talking, I will give you a 1-minute warning and a 30-second warning, hopefully. Okay, if I can sneak it in.
I have 3 minutes per speaker.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Chancellor staff and all the people that are here tonight. I'm going to read from a statement I sent you this afternoon that you may not have had a chance to see. And Ms. Ray, since I didn't have an email address, I'll just hand you a physical copy of that, if that's all right with you. One of my favorite words in the English language is can, which is the scope of one's vision. During my 35 years at Fullerton College, I did my best to expand the vision of the departments I worked with, the colleagues I collaborated with, and the students that I served. So much of the educational leadership experience comes down to having a robust vision for the future. I thank you as a governing board for voting as you did with a majority in favor of the Sherbeck Field improvements. Thank you so much for that. I know it was a very long night, exhausting night, and I know all of you worked very hard in reaching the conclusion you did. And I know that it was a 5-4, so that means there were serious concerns about what was going on. So I thank you. I thank you for that. It's my continuing belief that college and district planners have responded to the concerns of the neighbors, have designed something that is responsive to their concerns. And I think tonight is about symbolism. Are you going to make a symbolic move to assuage the fears of the neighbors, when I have great confidence that this college wants to make it work for the neighbors? And I ask you to support the original proposal of 4,400 seats and not reduce it down to 2,000. The impact differences are negligible, as was just explained to us factually and in the original EIR. So what do we gain then by reducing down to 2,000 seats? Besides reducing the vision for the future of Hornet athletics. And you saw already tonight, but I'm going to just highlight the colleges with which we compete. Mount San Antonio has a stadium of 15,000, El Camino 12,000, Cerritos 11,000, Santa Ana 9,000, Saddleback College 8,000, Orange Coast 7,600, Southwestern Community College 7,275, and San Diego Mesa 5,000. We're not even asking for that size. And the schools from which we recruit: Fullerton High School 5,000, Yorba Linda 4,000, Buena Park 3,900, La Habra 7,000. And as Dr. Schulz mentioned, when Orange Coast, Golden West moved away from Orange Coast, their home attendance doubled. I think Fullerton College will attract a larger following for home football, soccer, and track events. We know, due to all the restrictions, that the events will be over early evening, except for one night, perhaps per year, if weather causes us, hot weather, to have a football game in the early evening. I respectfully ask that you adopt a more robust vision for the future for Hornet athletics and for the college. I think if you let the scope of your vision match those of the coaches, and supporters who dream a bright future for Warner Athletics and its partnerships with students, alumni, and community will be most thankful. But I want to reiterate, thank you for all the time that you've invested in this question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ben Vega, followed by Chris Johnson.
My name is Ben Vega, and I'm here to speak for a larger capacity. The venue between 4,000 and 5,000 would fit needs of the school and for people attending the games. Now, you have two games a year that really affect your average home attendance. Last week, there was 2 weeks ago there was 400 people at the game. That's not going to affect anything, okay, as far as traffic, lighting, and noise. But there's going to be a surge in people coming to these games, okay? So with in the past, you've had two incidences. If you have 2,000 people that are in this arena, you're going to have 2,000. You're going to have 1,500 or 2,000 all on one side. There's been two incidents. One in the 70s where when you put people that are from the opposing team and the home team together, there's going to be fights and people bickering back and forth. In the 70s, a woman hit somebody over the head because he was on the Fullerton side because he was saying something bad about her offensive lineman's son. At Cal State Fullerton in the late 90s, there was a former Fullerton College football player that was in the stands, and he was saying something bad about Fullerton, and they started getting into it. He hit him in the mouth. Okay, they ended up getting sued and the whole thing. So when you put people together from opposing teams and the home team, it's never good. So you're also looking at a situation where you're going to have, there's two games. There's Santa Ana and there's homecoming that bring your averages up. You're averaging the 16th highest out of football attendance in the state right now. Okay, so with that surge that's going to happen, okay, you're looking at an increased attendance, and I think that it best serves the school with a higher capacity. Higher capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. So Chris Johnson, followed by Tanya McRoy.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here. My name is Chris Johnson. I live in the neighborhood, Princeton Circle. I spoke 2 weeks ago, a little bit of my background. I come from an athletics background, having worked at UNLV in sports information when they were the national champions, so I've been at the highest level of college athletics. I've also worked in '94 World Cup at the Rose Bowl. I'm official scorer for the Angels right now, so I have a background in athletics. I also handle the budget for the College of Arts at Cal State Fullerton, so I understand how money works as well. So I have background in all this kind of stuff. With regards to the capacity of the stadium, there isn't a need. I have, if you mention all those numbers of the local high schools, if you look nowadays, they aren't filled. They aren't even close to, they might be even half at most. Kids don't go. People aren't attending. They're busy with other stuff. You may get a surge, but there isn't a need for 2,000. It's the idea of, I'm a single guy and I drive a big giant Hummer just because I can, right? You haven't a need that you're trying to meet. I spoke with President Schulz right afterwards, the vote last 2 weeks ago, and he says, I only want what is just enough for us. A smaller stadium creates a smaller footprint, which affects lighting and sound and things like that affect our neighborhood. We care about the program, we want it to be successful, but it also has the needs of our community as well. And I thank Dr. Schulz for having conversations with me throughout this process and his thoughts and views and things along that line. I know the EIR is locked in. The one thing I'd like for you guys to make sure that you implement is the other recommendations so that when his successor comes along, and there will be a successor, however long down the road, sorry, sir, if that's reality, right? That things are locked in, that you provide guidance for his successor, and the things of, like they said in the report, that when you have a classroom experience, you only need 25% of the lighting to be used at that time. Make sure you have guidelines of things like that. That the entrance and exit is only on the west side of the stadium, so that it convinces people to park in the parking structure or parking on campus. So please provide guidance as well with the things that aren't mentioned in the EIR, and so that we don't have to revisit this again, because it has been a long situation with us, even in the community. We care about the college. We are Hornets ourselves, and we want to be able to move forward once this process is done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tanya McCurry, followed by Gina Bennett.
Good evening, my name is Tanya McCurry. I know you guys are sick of seeing us. We're a little tired of seeing you too. But we actually know we're very, very grateful that you continue to hear the concerns of everyone who is affected and invested in this project. I had a chance before I came to review the videotape from the last meeting, and all of you, I think with the exception of Trustee Bent, said that you were either in favor of or more open to or preferred a smaller 2,000-seat stadium. At your peak crowd capacity, you have 350, even as champions. So 2,000 seats leaves ample room for growth. I think a 4,000-seat stadium with 350 people might be a little embarrassing. But I do want to ask you to stay to your word, and some of you to your promise, that you will reduce the seating. We also ask that you reduce the lighting to 25% of full power for non-game events. And finally, we ask that you adjust the PA system to a 2,000-seat stadium. If you are willing to put these into the EIR, not only would we as a community have very little to worry about, but I truly believe it would be a complete and total win for everyone involved. And hopefully we can stop meeting here and meet at a Hornets home game. Thank you for your continued concern for the community, the city, and the students. Thank you.
Gina Bennett, followed by Ken Bain.
Good evening, Gina Babbitt, Fullerton College, Professor of Physical Education. I wanted to thank each of you on the board for your support in being at this juncture with Sherbeck Field facility. It would be a welcome addition as a professor to have my classroom have permanent seats and lights. I have a concern that we've overlooked the bigger picture with the possible reduction of seats. As our student population continues to grow, our biggest accomplishment is at the end of the year in May with our graduation. In 2017, Fullerton College graduated 700 students, and in 2018, our biggest class was 875, with our second biggest class last year, 850 students. Each year, we have accommodations for 7,000 guests and temporary bleachers. 4,417 seats seems like the correct number and will help in aiding lowering the cost with rentals. Why would this board consider anything less and shortchange the growing population of Fullerton College with the consideration of a reduction of seats? The oldest living community college, Fullerton College, continues to grow, and it does deserve the 4,417 seats. Please continue your support with what you voted on last week. Thank you.
Ken Bain, followed by Garrett Campbell.
So thank you for your thoughtful attention, and thank you for considering a de-scoped project to 2,000 seats. The neighbors have circulated a remaining list of final requested adjustments. And short of sharing the high school stadium, we do feel like we can support a 2,000 seat facility with clarifying restrictions that we've provided in that requested list. And I won't go through them from the DS or from the podium here. I assume that you've all seen them and that you've considered them. What staff is proposing tonight does not completely address everything that we've asked for. This needs to be reconciled. So instead of going through them, what I'd like to say is that voting for the reduced capacity project with the requested final adjustments really does represent the best possible balance of the school's needs over neighborhood impacts. Clearly, there's pent-up demand for a stadium, even expectations in the community of the program that's been going on for decades. Justified or not, there is demand, there is expectation. Hal Sherbeck was an amazing person, I've come to learn, and I'm really grateful. But why do we need 4,000 seats when there are 300 less attendees on average at each football game? You know, it's not a competition for size. It's a matter of responsible government. 2,000 seats was what was originally proposed in 2009. You talk about vision. Vision includes compromise. It's not a symbolic change. It's not negligible difference. There's a reason that no stadium has been at this site for decades, right? And so I urge the board to have open debate from the dais tonight and to, if possible, go line by line with a roll call vote on the items that we request, because what's being proposed by staff needs to be reconciled with these requests. You know, there was a mention of project alternatives being fulfilled or not being fulfilled, and I want to clarify that the 2,000 seat alternative fulfills all the project alternatives. There was discussion about only partial objectives being fulfilled for the use for permanent bleachers for games. Well, 2,000 satisfies the need far and away. So I think it's an error to say that it only partially fulfills that objectives. Finally, there's an objective of cost savings. Well, the cost savings of the stadium was always a fallacy. You'll never recoup your money with a $6 million expenditure in maintenance compared to the current expenditure levels with bleacher rentals. So finally, I'd like to, 1 minute, was that 1 minute?
30 seconds.
Finally, I'd like to go back to Title IX. Last time I was here, I shared with you some analysis of some significant and serious violations of Title IX. I urge the board to agendize an investigation later in the meeting tonight when you have that opportunity, and not spend a penny on a stadium, 2,000 seats or not, until you rectify and address this gender inequity going on at Fullerton College.
Followed by Jerry Padilla.
I'm Garrett Campbell, professor of physical education, and I'm also a head football coach. First, I'd like to say thank you for voting the way you did last time. I appreciated that on a number of levels for what it is, obviously, that I do specifically. The improvements are long overdue, and I believe with all my heart this is a campus-changing opportunity. This is not just about football. This is a campus-changing opportunity. But speaking about football, last time I was out there, I spoke about our health and safety of our young men and getting on the bus, coming back, and showers, and a lot of other things. Last week, we played at Covina District Stadium because Mount San Antonio College is redoing their stadium. The capacity there is about 5,000 people. That was almost filled. It's a championship game, I get that. I'm not sure where the numbers 300 come from for attendance. I know we draw much better than that. But that game was almost filled. And during the course of the game, I actually remember talking to Coach Crooks, one of our assistants, saying, where would we seat the other 2,000 people that show up for the game? That's a huge concern of mine. Not unlike last week when we had all the faculty here, if we didn't have these little barriers, would they be wrapped around where y'all are sitting? I worry about that for the health and safety of my own players, with the spectators being involved or being close to the game. That's a huge concern of mine. So just to reiterate, I appreciate what you did. I don't know if you understand the impact that you made on our campus and within, obviously, our football program, but also as a physical educator, I appreciate that as well. Thank you for your time.
Jerry Padilla, followed by Mary Frances Gable.
Thank you for letting me speak. Joe Padilla, Professor Emeritus, Fullerton College. I invested 46 years of my life working at Fullerton College, so I'm affiliated with the college. I was also born in Fullerton. My grandparents lived in Fullerton, and I moved to Fullerton when I became, a professor. So I'm invested in the Fullerton community. Also, I live on Dorothy and Hollydale, right there in Fullerton. Down the street from Cal State Fullerton, down the street from Troy, down the street from Acacia Elementary, down the street from Rosary Academy, and down the street from Fullerton College. So I live in an educational community. Fullerton is about education. And I tell you, as a Fullertonian who's lived here all my life, property values are not going to go down because a stadium for 4,400 people is good. Believe me, let's be realistic. Property values keep going up and up and up. So we have to be realistic. Nobody's going to lose $150,000 in a house because Fullerton College builds a stadium, okay? We are nationally known. Fullerton College is nationally known. We are known for our theatrical program, our musical program, our speech and debate program, our child development program is stellar, and we're known for our multi-athletic programs that we have here at Fullerton College. Now, Berkeley is the flagship of the UC system. Maybe I'm being a little bit egotistical, but Fullerton College is the flagship of the community college system in the state of California. Academically, you name it, we're a flagship, So, I would just have the board stick behind the decision of 44-17. I want you to recognize in the world that I come from, where I was raised by indigenous grandparents and parents, we were taught that you think 7 generations into the future. So I'm asking the board to think futuristically. Don't just think for the next 10 years. I'm 76. There's a good fact that I might not be alive in 10 years. You see, we have to think beyond just us. Just us. We have to think futuristically. So I'm asking you to consider the future and keeping Fullerton College and the city of Fullerton as an educational, community in the forefront. So let's not be simplistic. Thank you for your time. Okay?
Mary Frances Gable, followed by Brian Brooks.
Hi, Mary Frances Gable. I just want to say that I didn't make good use of my little poster last time, but I do represent, not I, but our group does represent 571 signatures from 480 neighboring households that have asked that you not build this project. And one of them is Gavin. He's going to speak to you tonight.
Hello. Hello, my name is Gavin, and I want to be sharing about the stadium. I'm in the 4th grade, and each and every day I have homework and assignments that take a long time. I have ADHD, so it's hard to stay focused. A loud stadium would make me lose focus. I lose sleep too, right? Please make the stadium not bright and not so loud, so me, my family, my friends will not lose sleep or too tired to do their homework. Thank you for my point of view.
So what I think is interesting is that he actually is expressing the facts that we have in this neighborhood. I worked all day on my little speech and I just couldn't get it right, and then I forgot to sign Gavin in, so I'm glad he showed up. But the truth of the matter is, it is a neighborhood. It is a place where we live. And I think as I've listened to my colleagues speak, the thing that really stands out to me is use. I keep thinking, why do they want stadium lighting? Why do we have to have lighting at night when you guys don't play at night? You play during the day. If there's a problem with a night game, you could move it to either Yorba Linda or Fullerton High School, and I've actually called the man who's in charge of these restrictions on use, and I said, how hard is it to get a waiver? And he said, they fill out a piece of paper. So I know that it's doable. We ask that you please make constraints on use. That's what Ken was referring to. And also that you consider this neighborhood that's been there for, well, my house was built in 1953, and it would be much more accommodating to have the 2,000 seat stadium in our neighborhood and to have specific restrictions on use specifically for this college, which is what you say you want, classes and football team and the track team and the soccer team. Please, we beg of you for that. Thank you very much.
Okay, Brian Crooks, followed by Clay Getchie.
Thank you for having me. I want to thank you first by voting in the venue 2 weeks ago. I think you guys made the right decision. I know it was a hard decision, but the 44-17 I think works out best for us. We can host football games, soccer, track and field events. Most importantly, we can hire graduation and not have to bring in stands. Do that, we'd be proud of our graduation. I was part of graduation back when we did Fullerton High School, and it wasn't the same. Ever since we moved to our campus on our field, it's been the greatest thing since sliced bread for Fullerton College. It's great to be there, and it'd be great to have the stands there, so we're not renting these stands coming every May. The EIL report shows no really difference from the 4,400 to 2,000. The traffic, the noise pollution, the lights, it's not really a difference. Okay? Just because there are 2,000 seats doesn't mean there are going to be 2,000 people there. There could be 3,000 show up. What are we going to do? You don't know. That's traffic, okay? We average, probably they said 300, we probably average about 1,200 to 1,500 people at a regular game. Back in 2016, we played the state championship at Sherbeck High School, we had 4,500 people there. We had 3,500 for the playoffs. Okay, you go for the future, you get the impact, accommodate people that want to come for that game. Just because we average a little doesn't mean it can't happen 1 game or 2 games of the year. So we need those stands to accommodate that for graduation and for the big games we have. You heard back last Saturday or 2 Saturdays ago, we almost had 5,000 people on our championship game. We have to accommodate that. And I think you guys made the right decision of having 4,400 seats to help us with that. You have to think for the future of this college, like Jared Padilla said. We have a growing population 10, 20, 30 years from now. We need to have bigger facilities. We have a 3-story science building. We have a huge library that's beautiful on campus to accommodate our students. Let's make that for the stadium. Other college we compete against have other stadiums that have bigger capacity. Do they fill it? No, but they have it for the games they have. Okay, it makes their campus look good and makes the students proud to go there. The field is long overdue. We've been trying to get this field done I've been here 23 years, we've been trying to get the field done for 23 years. We've never played on our campus. I think the alumni will be charged up and ready to come watch Fullerton, come back to the campus that they had their lives changed at. They want to come and see the future Hornets play. I again think you guys made the right decision. I know it was a hard decision. I think you should stick to that decision. Don't go down to the 2,000. It would just be too little. Okay, if we have to do think that the red state, we have the red stands for a playoff game. Why? Let's do the right thing. Get 4,400 seats there to accommodate the math. We don't want people sitting shoulder to shoulder. They should have room to breathe and cheer for the Hornets. And I think you guys did the right thing. I think you guys should be talked out of what you did. It's for the college, it's for the future, it's for the students of this campus. I wish you guys a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you very much.
Clay Getchie, followed by Robert Singer.
Thank you. Thank you all for the consideration and responsiveness to our requests in the past. And thank you also to Dr. Schulz and Dudek and the experts for the candor in this particular report. If my math is right, the decibel level going down is something between a 30% and 50% decrease, so you can't call that an insignificant decrease, plus 3/4 of the traffic impact going away. I consider a significant difference. I think in a prior meeting, the prior report, at least one of the presenters said that there should be no difference between 2,000 and 4,000 seat stadium, and I think this report, again, we appreciate their candor in redoing the analysis and finding out that there really are significant differences. In addition to the 2,000 seat stadium, we put together some additional items, which you all have, and I won't repeat here. We believe nearly all of them are consistent either with what Fullerton College has already said it's planning to do, or what the various experts, sound and lighting experts have said are in line with best design practices, if I can paraphrase what they said. We had a meeting scheduled by Dr. Schulz before this board meeting to go over these requests. I was unable to attend. The meeting got canceled because of my work travel, but I do appreciate you calendaring that for us. While I've been opposed to this project, I've also tried to understand the desires of Fullerton College and the restrictions that the administrators and the executives and the board members have. And I felt that was reciprocated by everyone I've talked to as well, particularly in the meeting that you arranged this summer. Many of the usage parameters that were presented today came from that meeting. In the spirit of that working relationship, we came up with the additions to the project that would have little to no impact on Fullerton College and what they want, but a big positive impact on community relations. And that can only help how this project and future projects are viewed. I urge you to vote in favor of these additions. And if not, I would ask that you direct a meeting with Dr. Schulz, Dr. Marshall, and us to discuss these requests and have them present appropriate ones at the next board meeting for your approval. Thank you very much.
Robert Singer, followed by Leonard Lattman.
Good evening, I'm Bob Singer from Fullerton. Based on last meeting's Sherbeck Field EIR approval, the vote of support for this large project is fragile. It was 4-3 among trustees. I believe both student board members voted against the project, indicating it at least a marginal student support. So this indicates that care needs to be taken by the trustees to reach the wisest decision. It's not immediately obvious. Major substantive points were made challenging whether these millions of dollars of investment and maintenance for Sherbeck Stadium is, in fact, best use of the large resources of the North Orange County Community College District institution, its students, its staff, and the community. I believe strong cases have been made that perhaps it's not. Lastly, the limitation on rental use and other constraints presented by the trustees indeed went a long way to address legitimate community concerns about the stadium impact. However, that decision can be reversed, I believe, at any time by the Board of Trustees. And I sincerely suggest that in order to protect our neighboring communities and build continuing community confidence, that the North Orange County Community College District reach out to the Fullerton City Council and jointly put together an agreement that will maintain these restrictions that you have talked about over a long period of time, unless the situation is such that both entities agree. Thank you for the opportunity.
Good evening. I'm Leonard Lattman, former trustee of this great district. 2 weeks ago, you made a good decision approving the resolution for a long overdue Fullerton College football stadium. The resolution provided 5 Sherbeck Field improvements for a stadium, including bleachers for 4,417 spectators. You bent over backwards, putting into place mitigation measures and restrictions on the stadium use in response to community concerns. Tonight, you are considering rescinding that decision. Don't do it. The basic change being proposed is to reduce the seating to 2,000. Why? There are only minor tweaks to other parts of the approved plan as outlined in the attachment to the agenda sent out this afternoon. Why change to such a picayune stadium? There are 68 California community colleges with football teams. Only 2 or 3 do not have their own stadiums and use high school stadiums. The others have stadiums with seating capacity ranging from 5,000 to 20,000. The Hornets are in the National Central Conference, including El Camino, 7,000 seats. Mount San Antonio, 13,000 seats. San Diego Mesa, 5,000 seats. Cerritos, 12,000 seats. And Palomar, which has been using Escondido High School, but is now building its own stadium. Some nearby colleges include Saddleback with 8,000 stadium seats, Orange Coast 7,600 seats. Even high schools have done better than what you are now considering. Both Galena Park High School and Yorba Linda High School have relatively new, beautiful stadiums, which each seat 4,000. They and also the Chapman University football stadium are directly adjacent to residential areas which are not complaining. A 2,000-seat stadium just does not fit in with the image of the Fullerton College campus, a beautiful campus, a classy campus, a campus for 23,000 students that deserves more than a tiny 2,000-seat football stadium. The district and its colleges and NOCE have established a record of vision, taking a long view in planning. This proposal to rescind is short-sighted. Do not rescind your November 12th action. You were deliberate and thoughtful and compromising with the decision you made 2 weeks ago. Stick with it. And I'm concerned about the staff report that you heard tonight. That was not Fullerton College staff giving a staff report. Make that understood. That was not Fullerton College staff. Mr. Beck, you tried to get the Fullerton College president to respond as far as what Fullerton College's position was, and he was very diplomatic and you know, couldn't really answer the question, I don't think, very clearly. But you heard Fullerton College staff presentations here today, and I think if you ask Fullerton College staff, the real Fullerton College staff, they're supporting what you did 2 weeks ago, and you should stick with that decision, and thank you very much.
That's all the yellow cards I got. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board about this point? Okay. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second? Second. For discussion. Okay, all in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye. Aye. Closed. Okay, the public hearing is closed. We'll now go ahead to consideration of agenda item 3A, which is to adopt resolution 19/20-14, rescind the previous resolution 19/20-12, to approve and adopt the Sherbeck Field improvements, reduced project alternative mitigation, monitoring and reporting program, and related CEQA findings, and to approve and adopt the Sherbeck Field improvements, reduced project alternative. Do we have a motion? Second. Okay. Second? Second. Okay. We can now have discussion. I think the way we did it last time, going sequentially, the questions worked well, and we'll definitely include the student trustees this time. So I will start with Jackie, and we'll go down and just keep going around until we've had all our questions answered.
I have a clarification question. The decision was made last meeting. Is the Berkeley entrance south of the proposed, the stadium, is that going to be closed for events to kind of mitigate all the traffic to go through Lemon if they're traveling along Chapman?
In other words, because Berkeley curves, so I think you're referring to the east side.
The east side, yes.
Closest to the neighborhood, yes. Our plan would be to cordon off that area, direct all the traffic with signage and barrier so that traffic would enter to the north side on Berkeley, closest to the Berkeley Center across the street. But on the north side, that's where currently the surface level parking is, and future plans for a multi-level parking structure. Cars could also enter on Lemon, which is where thousands of people park in the multi-level parking structure that exists on Lemon.
And then my second question is in regards to the sound system. I mean, I've personally never been responsible for a sound system for any events, but is it done proportional to the amount of attendees, or is it just consistently set at the standard?
I'm going to invite Sam to respond to that first.
John Zaber from Van Clausen. It's dynamic. So the idea is that it's not just set to 11. The idea is if you have less people, you set it to accordingly to the amount of people that you have there.
Thank you. And I'll just add, I mean, as president and a member of the college committee, I mean, my direction would be, I'm not an engineer, but to adjust, you know, if we had a soccer game and less attendees, let's say, than a football game, I would direct, we would ask that the sound be adjusted accordingly.
Correct. Every type of event, depending on what it is, graduation, football, soccer, track and field, they will have different kind of standard noise levels that the crowd tends to put out. There's always kind of a adjustment period when you first do something like this, that you learn kind of how your crowd reacts. And then you eventually learn, okay, this is where we're doing this kind of event, this is where we know we need to be. you turn it down to that, or you have to turn it up a little bit for this, or whatever, all staying within that maximum that the reports have found for either seating configuration, and then just down from there accordingly.
Those are all the questions I have for now.
There's some beeping going on. Is there anything we can do about that? I don't know what that is.
It might take my computer.
Just unplug everything.
Turn it off. Just turn it off.
See how annoying that small sound is?
How many decibels was that?
Yeah, how many decibels?
Case in point.
Pull it back up, just close it.
It doesn't seem to be, that's just.
That's all right. That's okay, carry on.
Okay.
I have no questions at this time.
Barbara.
I just want to make a couple comments. I did receive the letters. Received several emails today. I was unable to respond to them and some phone calls. The one multiple copies came from the neighbors. The Getchy, Mary Francis Gable, Damon Lloyd, and Ken Bain. I have read the requests. I think you, in some of your comments, basically said that it's consistent with what Fullerton College has already agreed to do. You have written your board policy. I just want to acknowledge that I read them. I hear you. I think that we have made great strides to do that. I did want to talk a little bit about the allegation that we're not following Title IX and that we need training. I did go to training this weekend at the CCLC conference on Title IX specifically. So I just want you to be aware that you're all involved in training and things like that. And I just want to make sure that you understand really bent over backwards to appease a real good neighbor. I appreciate your thankfulness today.
I just wanted to make a couple statements. When you take a look at the two scenarios, what we voted on 2 weeks ago and what we're looking at today, a reduced scope of the project, there basically is zero impact difference between the two. It's all in relation to who attends, how many people are attending, and whether that field is full or not. So we acknowledge that it's not going to be a sellout crowd every single game for football or women's soccer or anything else. We do acknowledge also, though, that we are currently filling a field like that for graduation already. And so to me, I'm in favor of looking forward to the future as a person who just drove 3 hours to get here from 40 miles away because there was no forward thinking about our freeway system. And back in the day when they were planning our freeways and they thought 2 lanes would be enough, not only did they not allocate the proper land to be able to expand, but they allowed homes to build right up to the edge of those 2-lane freeways. That's the mess we're in. I want to take a look at the future. I think we are already warranted using it now. We've already had several coaches speak about how we filled fields up. I've been to Yorba Linda's field several times where it was almost full. And that's kind of about the size field we're talking about here. We've talked about historical games that had tens of thousands of people at Angel Stadium. And this is what we need to do. We need to plan for the future. The difference in the delta, you're talking about allocating this over a period of 50 or 70 years or however long it's going to last, it is not worth the difference to scale it down. If you scale it down, there's no expansion on top of that. There's no way it's like locked in. So you'd have to level it again and then build the 4,000 back or maybe bigger. We are completely undersized compared to all the community colleges out there. And the community college system, unfortunately, they've gotten rid of a lot of athletics over the years. And the community college education system, it's kind of the redheaded stepchild of education, I look at it as. K-12 gets a lot of priority, and the Cal States, UCs get a lot of priority. But this is something that provides a lot of school unity as well. It's very important to be able to have your own home games, as well as to be able to graduate on your own field without having to bring in a ton of bleachers every time. So for me, that's the way to look at it. It's a very simple decision, and so I would vote no on this and stick with the original plan. Oh, one more thing. Also want to mention that this 4,000 seats as well, to me, that is a compromise. Because so we narrowed it down. We had the choice of what we wanted to look at for the EIRs. And we had, you know, the more scenarios you look at, the more cost there is involved, the more time. And it was determined through a lot of work with neighbors and everything else that we didn't need 10,000 seats like some of the community colleges. We didn't need 20,000 seats like some of the community colleges. But the 4,000 is the proper amount. Thank you.
I have a statement that I want to make, but I want, if I'm incorrect in this one, I want somebody to correct me if my assumption is lacking. Going through the revised mitigation monitoring and report program, the revised one, based on the 2,000 seats. These measures are binding and irrevocable. They are legally mandated and go with the approval, either our prior approval or the one that is before us tonight. Is that correct? That is correct. Okay. These measures, I'm going to repeat it again. These measures are binding and irrevocable. They are legally mandated and go with the approval. So people who've said, well, you'll have a new president in a few years, you'll have a new board of trustees in a few years, maybe some of you like that. These are legally binding and will remain so in perpetuity. I wanted to make that clear. I wanted another clarification, maybe I should have asked it earlier, but this is Vena Klassen. Did I say your name correctly?
Yes. It's Dutch.
Oh, well, I like that.
Not much unless you're Dutch.
Our founder was Dutch.
You talk about two design concepts in terms of sound.
Yes.
And what I wanted to know, it says your firm recommends utilizing the directional loudspeakers for a focused public address system. You recommend that sound levels from both speech and music be continuously normalized while in use to ensure that they are not excessively loud and the PA system is utilized at the lowest possible sound level while preserving the intended use of the facility. So is that design concept the one you recommend, which is graduated down for the 2,000 seats? Is that in place in this, in
this report?
Yes.
No, it is not. What that is that is a suggestion of design in the sense that when the project's approved, which obviously it has been in some capacity, as it starts to be designed and built and actual systems are being programmed and things like that, it's more of a design team directive that this is how it is suggested that you set these things. So you can have it to where it is operator based, to where the operator is doing that. You can have that to where it is automatically based. We don't typically recommend that. These are both forms of normalization. We don't recommend that readily for an event-based usage like athletics, but more for continual music, something you would see for restaurant, rooftop, nightclub, things like that. Because the music is continuous, so as the music moves, you can have the speakers kind of adjusting. For event-based things to where it is on the field kind of broadcast as far as what's happening, or announcements for people, those don't tend to fluctuate too much. Because you don't have an announcer that is, say, screaming at one point and not, usually it's pretty even keel. So that's usually in this kind of orientation, say for athletic events, to where it is periodic PA noise and not continual PA noise. It's usually best handled by manual intervention, basically a very educated operator, somebody who knows kind of what they're doing.
So is there any way, in terms of some kind of a policy statement, to put it in that it be manually done with an educated operator? This this more sensitive system? I mean, I call it a more sensitive system in terms of design for sound.
Those kinds of things that when that system is being vetted, we can definitely offer expertise. That tends to go more on the college's side as to a recommendation we provide to the college, so that way when they are training someone to run it or something like that, it's really kind of how they would list job descriptions or things like that for the person who would run that. There's nothing that we would write that would be binding in that sense.
Okay. But it's the understanding that that this is desirable to have this kind of a sensitive system.
Right. Really what it comes down to in very, very basic terms is we are suggesting don't just flip the switch and walk away. It's turn it on and have somebody, maybe two people, that kind of work, that there's somebody down on the field, comes back to the booth, like, all right, let's turn it down a little bit, or let's turn it up a little bit, or something like that, and then there's somebody, and it's something that's actually working throughout the evening, not just something you just set it and forget it. It's not the Ronco food dehydrator.
Okay. I appreciate your explanation of something that is part of your engineering background, so thank you.
You're very welcome.
Some comments were raised about, and I've read everything that comes to me, about graduation, making it mandatory that it be in the daytime. I would like to say graduation has always been held in the daytime. The only reason it might be held in the evening is if we have extremely hot weather that makes it more tolerable to change the timing of it. And this is not something that we can prejudge in 2019, in my opinion. So I think you just need to assume that only under very extenuating circumstances will it be moved to. I mean, we have elderly people coming to graduations, and the visibility is really important. So I wanted to address that. Regarding class size, there was a notion that we make mandatory a minimum class size. We already do this. It doesn't matter if it's astronomy or archaeology or physical education. We are bound by minimum class sizes that are part of the curriculum process. So this does not require a micromanagement for an approval like this, because we are committed to sound enrollment management, and our campuses are too, all of them, all three of them. Valentina's are spread all over the place. I think there is, and this is part of one of the measures that is irrevocable and binding under aesthetics, field lighting levels. A different level for football and soccer field use, a different level for track field use, a different level for the bleachers. And these level differentials for each use are defined, and these are spelled out in the mitigating monitoring report. That is irrevocable and legally binding. Okay? Just want to make that part clear. I don't know if I'm ready to make the recommendation in support of tonight's motion. For the 2,000 seat level. And I'll repeat some of the things that have already been dealt with. Outside groups using the field are prohibited from using any public address or sound amplification system. That is a requirement. Field lighting shall not be used for any outside groups at any time on Saturday and Sunday. No field rentals for the purpose of musical performances or concerts by outside groups or individuals will be permitted. Those are mandatory, they are irrevocable. Parking on campus shall be provided free of charge for football and soccer game attendees. That's in there. And in looking at the traffic management plan, to me, the big ones are just at State College and Chapman, of which we have a percentage obligation to deal with for when that gets built. The three that were on Berkeley Street are insignificant and will be dealt with a traffic management plan that deals with how we bring traffic over to Lemon and Fullerton College Way, or Fullerton College Drive, and also, I think the noise and mitigation options, when you're looking at crowd size, there is a real difference that is shown in tables 5 and 6. I think that is all I have to offer.
Yes, I have one comment and 3 clarifications. I'm not sure when the football game took place, but Chapman University had their first playoff game in their stadium. And it was a thriller. They won 68-65, triple overtime. But the telling thing is they only had 1,221 spectators on the home side. And I'm sure that was all there because what they were competing against was Linville, Oregon, and Linville College in close to Portland, Oregon. And so that's all they can attract to that. What makes people think that Fullerton College can attract that number at even a playoff game. And about the football stadium at Chapman College, the field is surrounded by 35-foot high buildings, so the residents don't hear anything, or there's dormitories. And the residents across the street from Fullerton College, or Chapman University, 80% of them are owned by Chapman University, so the neighbors aren't impacted. And if anybody's gone to a football game at the Rose Bowl or the Coliseum, as I have, being shoulder to shoulder is a great advantage. It increases enthusiasm and excitement like you wouldn't believe, especially UCLA and USC. And at the same time, they were playing there in the Coliseum. Maybe that's why they only had 1,221. But Chapman University is a 4-year school, and alumni support 4-year schools a lot better than they do community colleges. So again, I don't know where you get your estimates. And then Cal State Fullerton football team played 1 year, not late 1990s, but 1992. At the end of the season, the football program was disbanded. So they had a brand new stadium and only played in it 1 year.
Undefeated ever since.
Yes, undefeated. Never lost a game since. Correct. And then as far as estimating Fullerton College home attendance, I went to the first 3 home games, sat on the visitor side, counted each one of those spectators, which included bus drivers, you can tell them with a black tie and a white shirt, volunteers, and those that, obligatory fund. They were administrators at Fullerton College, so they were expected to be there. And still, it ranged from 227 to 318, actual count. So.
I just
just wanted to clarify my vote from last meeting. I voted no for the possibility of more conversation in regards to the field, because this is a very important decision, especially for the students and the community. I just wanted to thank all of those who spoke today. It gave me a better idea on what my personal decision is. And I just wanted to state that we do need to think about the future, and we do need to think about the students now. I think with the successes of the football field and our athletics team has shown now and in the past, I think all of these improvements is well deserved. And like it was said before, again, we have to think about sudden surge in show up. I know now it may be small, but it's because we have a smaller stadium. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Esther?
I have no comment.
Anything, Jack? Anything else?
No.
Ed? Barbara?
No.
I just want to mention that out of all that's been said from everybody, I just don't see a single benefit of reducing the scale of this project at this point. I don't see a single benefit. And so I don't know what would be accomplished by doing so. And so I would encourage all of my colleagues to let the previous decision stand. I think that's the right move for our district and for our long-term future. And if you're making an investment like this, you want it to be a good investment for decades to come.
I support the motion.
Steve?
And just one more comment. Chapman University has residence halls, like I mentioned before, and they have over 2,000 students living on campus. So they had a potential of 21 spectators there, but they couldn't draw from their own students on campus. So numbers are what, 1,221 actually attended. And I don't know where Fullerton gets their idea that they can draw more.
Okay, I have two questions. There are a question and a clarification. One is about the actual attendance. And we've heard that average is 300. We've heard that the average is 1,300. Dr. Schulz, somebody, can you clarify? I mean, it can't be both. And yet we've seen, in writing, some data that indicated 13, 14, 1,500 average. But then we also hear people say it's only 300. So I'm confused.
Thank you. In response, thank you for President Grant. The numbers that we produced in writing were from our sports information officer who tracks the games, the scores, and data like that of attendance. So I haven't been to every game this year. I've been to 3 of our football games. The games that I went to didn't attract only 350 spectators. I heard Coach Campbell, and I didn't go to West Cleveland, but I believe him when he said that the game between Mount Sac and Fullerton College had 5,000 people at the game. To really follow up in detail, we could research that and find the source and share it.
It's home versus away games, with home games being the lower number.
Okay, so, and what we've seen, say, what you've got from sports information, it was 13, 14, 15. That was average per game. That wasn't per season for 5 games. Clarifying. It was not 5 times 300.
Correct.
The other
So,
thing,
Dr. Schulz, are you saying that how many people were at the games you were at? President Schulz?
It's not appropriate for people to Yeah, ask point questions of from the order. audience.
We'd like to
Point
know
of order.
what's
It's very
going on.
Public comment is already over. Is there anything you want to add about the attendance that you know personally, or?
Just without having the data sheets in front of me, I don't want to guess.
Thank you.
But I could use that.
Okay. The other question I have, which is not about the environmental part, but is certainly relevant to the projects, is about the cost of the 2 projects. What do we know about the expected cost of the larger versus the expected cost of the smaller capacity?
I'll let staff, if we have it, I might have projected in my folder. Let me check.
believe there was something in our board packet that talked about expected cost of smaller.
A little over $5 million.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, and then what was the expected cost of the larger?
The last projection we had on the 4417 size project, I believe was about 5.9 million. Ask Rod and staff to confirm that.
So about $900,000 difference.
Right, based on the most current projections we have.
I'm assuming 500,000.
5 point something, 5.9.
Right, 5.388, almost 5.4 to 5.9, 500,000.
$500,000. I think we've had, yes.
I just want to mention 500,000 over 50 years, 70 years, 30 years, whatever you consider. We spend tens of millions of dollars on excess parking lots just so we can park our students. This is nothing. $500,000 over 50 years to not have to rent extra stands for graduation and that kind of thing. To me, it's there's no difference in impact. So I'm going to be hard no on this. Thank you.
I think we're ready for a vote. To be clear, a yes vote is in favor of rescinding the previous resolution, and so it's in favor of the 2,000 seats. A no vote is to maintain 4,400 seats. Your first one. Okay, so yes is 2,000, no is 4,400. Okay. Danielle, would you please call the roll call vote?
Trustee Bennett?
No, keep the previous approval.
Trustee Blount?
No.
No.
Yes.
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 Trustee Dempsey?
What? How can we coach from the audience?
He
He made a
misunderstood it.
mistake.
Trustee Bendy, was your vote in favor of the 2,000 or the 4,400?
That's 2,000.
Okay, so that was a yes vote.
Yes.
Okay.
Trustee Dungy?
Yes.
Trustee Lopez?
Aye.
Trustee McClanahan?
Yes.
Trustee Rodarte?
Here. I didn't hear, sorry, yes.
I do all
Sorry,
three.
Trustee Brown?
Continuing to be rude. Notice up there.
Everybody won. Relax.
Trustee Reyes?
No.
Trustee Brown?
It really doesn't matter what I say because the reduced capacity is
Put on the record
anyway. Yes, obviously I'm going to do that. It's new information that previous colleges have seen substantial increases in their attendance when they have gone to having facilities on their campuses. But I've said for a long time that I think the reduced capacity is the better choice for what is needed now and in the foreseeable future, and also I think that the reduced cost is a factor, so I would also vote yes for that. So I count that as 6 yeses, 1 no, and then 2 student advisory votes for no. So the resolution to rescind the previous resolution and adopt the reduced project alternative passes 6-4.